All right. So you guys good to go?
We're ready.
We're ready for you.
All right, cool. Welcome to the Waking Up From Work podcast, Nourish and Friends. So we have, this is episode 16 right now. We have on today, George and Sydney from Nourish. Is it Nourish something else or just Nourish?
Nourish Mindful Events.
Okay. Nourish Mindful Events. And I'm definitely going to let these guys go into it a little bit. I met George back, we're probably hitting maybe 2 years, maybe two years now at this point.
It's over 2 years now.
Okay. And George and I worked together. He had a guided meditation that he put up on the Insight Timer, and I wrote some of the music for him. And I remember like deadline time. Do you remember that last night, dude?
Yeah.
That was
You crushed it though.
That was good for me, dude, because that was like, hey, this is what it's like to hit deadlines and be really serious about hitting that deadline. Because we were at the point, I think I've mentioned this even on the podcast, where I would actually do a revision. I would send it to George, and then I would fall asleep for like 30 minutes and just put the phone next to my face. And then when he called me, I would go, all right, word. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. And then I would go edit again. And then the next day I'd work at like 6 a.m. So like I was
just got put through the ringer.
Zombified, but like we made it, dude. And that thing got like a ton of views.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It actually, the idea was like, hey, it was a 21-day guided meditation series. Cause the idea was like after 21 days, you were supposed to form this new habit.
Sure.
Because they say actually 50% of success in meditation is determined by consistency.
Yeah.
Doing it once or twice is not going to make your life puppy dogs or rainbows. And so, the idea was, 21 days to form a new habit. And just on the first day because you could check the views, for each of the different days. I think last time I looked at just the first day had over 11,000 listens. So I can't thank you enough.
Wow.
Crazy, man.
That's awesome.
It was such a cool project to see. And for those of you that have heard me talk about Jesse, and then now just last episode, Pete, George is kind of in the same circle. I got to know George by meeting Jesse and knew Pete from meeting Jesse. And this is just kind of how all this stuff untangles in life. So that's how I met him. And he is a yoga meditation guru. And then we've got Sydney over there, who I'm hearing knows how to cook some real good food. And they've kind of teamed up to make Nourish, which is essentially like a pop-up event style type of deal that's going to offer both of those. But I want you guys to explain kind of what is Nourish, and also like just your backgrounds together. Like, how did we get to where we're at between the two of you, for our listeners who don't know any piece?
Sure.
Sure.
You want to start?
Yeah. Well, I'll take us back a little bit, and he'll explain Nourish a little bit better.
Sweet.
So George and I have been together coming up on 8 years. And I mean, we've evolved throughout the years, but one of our fun little adventures is we went out to California. We moved out there in 2015. Can you guys hear me, or is this better?
Yeah, you're great.
Is this okay?
Closer's better, but
closer's better. Okay. So 2015, we moved to California, San Diego, and we just were immediately gravitated towards that atmosphere. The, laid back, people are super into spirituality and yoga and healthy food, and the sun's shining, and it's like, it's amazing. If you've ever been there, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I've only been to LA, and everyone in the world tells me that that's an island and it's its own thing.
Yeah, I don't.
And that has nothing to do with California.
It's a false representation.
So I've just,
I feel like, I don't know California well, but I feel like there's like different pockets, and they're all completely different.
For sure.
San Diego has that low key vibe, that like, typical surfer vibe. But anyway, so we were attracted to that. Circumstances happened where we felt the need to bring a lot of those aspects back to the East Coast, where we're from. Sure. And we saw a lot of these concepts of incorporating different types of wellness together out there. And we Originally, actually, while we were out there, we were developing our brand and creating a business plan and really honing in on what we wanted to do. And originally, when we moved home, which was where I'm from, Cape Cod, we wanted to open up a storefront.
Okay.
However, like we inquire with a bunch of people and really thought that that's what we wanted to do. And then once we got home, we realized that's, we don't really want to be locked down up to a place 24/7. That's really not what we're into. We want to be able to travel. We want to be able to connect to as many people as possible.
Okay.
And that's basically how Nourish started, wanting to bring those more prevalent concepts from California to the East Coast and spread them to as many people as possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the way it happened. We had been together. Like, I was already a yoga and meditation teacher. We actually moved out there because the Center for Wellbeing, where I got certified,
Right.
was in Southern California. And so I actually moved out there because I kind of already knew a lot of people there and figured if I moved out there, I'd be able to teach for a little while. And, they say like repetition's the mother of skill. And so like, I just needed to like get my feet wet and start teaching. So, because there's no better experience than actually being out there in the field doing the work.
100%.
And so we moved out there, I started teaching. And then, like she said, we wanted to bring some of these things that we'd learned out there back here where they were less prevalent. And so we moved back to the East Coast, and the brick and mortar thing, I just realized that like because it's like, I read this book once called The Desire Map by Danielle Lepore. And she talks about how behind every action that we take, there's a core desired feeling. And,
Okay.
It's like, I might, want to, like, one of my goals this year is to launch a podcast, but I know that that's going to move me in the direction of my core desired feelings in life, like fulfillment, bliss, abundance. All of these things are going to come as a result of that goal coming to fruition. And
Okay.
so I realized that opening up a brick and mortar, or we realized that together, wasn't really in alignment with our core desired feelings. It was more like we felt like traveling the world and sharing these tools that have transformed our own life with as many people as possible. So we have like a pop-up company, and the idea is like, hey, Nourish, if we don't take time to nourish ourselves, we can't take time to nourish anybody else. If you don't take time for self-care, you're not going to be able to show up as your best version for everybody else in the world.
Absolutely,
So,
man. I firmly believe that.
Exactly.
We've talked about it before. Where like
with Jake,
I talk about like, Jake, we talked about like fitness. Like if that was starting to touch on like health, like if you're not healthy, you're not going to be the same productive. But even like mentality wise, like the reason behind this podcast, chasing some of these things, is, for me at least, and I feel like a lot of other people, it's like if I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, then I'm not going to be a good father, and I'm not going to be a good husband, and I'm not going to be a good friend if I'm miserable. So I have to do things to make it so that I am the best person that I possibly can for you guys, like in terms of that health, mind, physical, like everything.
Totally.
Make everything else is going to escalate what is possible.
And that's why we created the concept of Nourish, because it's, we give the people the platform to nourish their body, mind, and soul. So the first hour of each event usually is yoga. Then the second 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes is meditation. And then the last hour and a half is a 3-course meal. And usually each of the events are themed around a different topic. So like we just actually did one with one of your last guests, Jesse Harless, the guy who wrote the Cold Showers book, who's had a tremendous impact on my life. And he led a goal setting exercise, like in between yoga, meditation, and dinner, right at the beginning of the year on January 1st, where people could set their goals so they could plan their year, so they could actually move into the direction of like what it was that was going to enable them to live their best year ever. Cool. And so it's cool because it's just an opportunity for people to learn these tools that can help them live their best life and find that fulfillment within themselves.
I love it.
It also sounds like there's just like a huge community aspect to it when you have that traveling. feel where you're popping up and you're a person who's there at a new community with new people in a new place, and you get to kind of come around and share that with people, and you get to meet people like Jesse, and then Jesse gets to rub off on you, and then you take what you learn from, like what I learned from Dave, and then you can kind of spread it around. So is that also like the benefit to not
Yeah,
having the brick and mortar too? Like, do you notice that the community is a little bit stronger than having it in one place?
it's definitely diverse too.
Mm,
You get a bunch of different people depending on where you are.
mm,
And I think that was what I realized, one of the most beneficial things of creating a business like this is because you're providing someone who, say if they're, might not be, they might not have overall well-being or their idea of perfect health.
right.
They're setting themselves up for success.
Hmm.
So they're coming into a safe space where they know that they're going to get quality conversation with people who are in that same mindset. And because of that, the community grows and it thrives. It's amazing. Like
It's important.
some people have had like really like breakthrough moments at
Yeah.
our dinner table because they know that they can talk like about things that might be eating themselves up, or it's just it's
Mhm.
really cool to see.
Yeah, surrounding yourself with positivity.
Mm.
Exactly.
Totally.
So
And like
if you have
kinda
an event
the
and
cul
everyone there, their entire purpose for this event is to get what they're looking for out of it, and your purpose is to give them that, then
Right.
everyone there is there's no reason to do an event like that if you're just like everything sucks. Like you go to an event like that to get in a better spot, and everyone there can support that, I guess, right?
Totally. And they say,
Strong.
like you just said, that talking about when you were talking about the aspect of community and the power of that, there's that quote. I forget, who was the original person who said it, but it says, we're the sum total of the 5 people we surround ourselves with most.
Yep.
And so, like, I'm an individual in long-term recovery, which means I haven't found it necessary to pick up a drink or drug now since August 7th of 2011.
Congratulations,
Congrats,
man.
man.
Thank you. The reason that I share that is because what I've recently been discovering and what I've recently been sharing is that, like, the tools that help me get sober are the same tools that can help me thrive in my business and in my life as an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Mm.
And so what I discovered is there's really 3 main things you need to thrive no matter what it is you're moving towards. One of them is community. We can do together what I can't do alone. So it's that, like, you're the sum total of the 5 people you surround yourselves with most. Like, who's in your front row? Like, no matter what you're doing, like, get some people in your front row who are going to inspire you to live your best life. Then you need a set of tools, like the tools that we're offering them to live their best life: yoga, meditation, eating right. Like, when you get your mind, body, and soul in the right place, like, things start to line up for you in your
Yeah.
life.
Mhm.
And then the third aspect is like some sort of framework for purpose or service. And like, that's like the goal setting thing. Like, we help people figure out their dharma, which is like a Sanskrit word that means
Mhm.
purpose in life. Like, when you have a purpose and you have a community and you have a set of tools, like, you're going to thrive in no matter what endeavor you're like engaging your time in.
I like it.
Hmm.
So right now, are you guys working other jobs and side hustles too to support this? Like, what does the landscape look like for you guys? Where does it go from here right now?
Yeah, right now we both have full-time jobs. George is also a yoga teacher and meditation teacher. That occupies a lot of his time. We both have retail jobs, so we can pay our bills and our mortgage and stuff right now. This is a growing business for us. We're hoping that, especially this year, we can turn it into something that's more full-time. But the benefit of where we are right now, we've been with the company for a long time. We can take off time for these events and really put thought into each event and prepare for them. So we have a few coming up next month, right? Next month or May, I guess in May. So we can, we call it pop-up style, but they're a little bit more prepared than just your typical pop-up.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you guys have a plan on what's being
Yeah.
implemented, but pop up in the sense that that location was chosen for just that day for that event only,
Exactly.
but not pop up. Planning is not
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 like,
at
hey,
all. No. Hey, I guess
We just showed
5
up.
p.m. Come over. No.
Totally.
yeah.
I mean, I remember talking to you. I don't know if this is still your same experience, Dave, but like when we did the 21-day meditation series recording together, you were working at Verizon.
Yes.
And
same style.
yeah, and one of my spiritual teachers, this woman named Gabrielle Bernstein, said once, let your 9 to 5 be the venture capitalist for your dream job.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm trying to
Talk
set
about that a
myself
lot.
exactly. I'm trying to set myself up right now, me and Sydney, us both, so we can do what we love full time. And we kind of are, like, because we work anyways at the job. We work 5 to 1. We get out, we start working on Nourish. We start planning events. Sydney starts planning the menus. Like, one of the things Sydney's doing this year, which is awesome, is I'm teaching at a new yoga studio, Jolly Yoga and Art in Providence, and they're running a retreat this year on Martha's Vineyard, and she's going to be the chef for the yoga retreat. So
that's awesome.
it's like the 9 to 5 is great because they're flexible and they let us work around our schedule, around their schedule. But it's like right now that's just paying the bills, and we're never gonna. I'd rather even if I am doing that, continue while I am doing that, working toward our dream and die trying to do that than not try at all.
For me, most of the reason why I always want that picture just to be painted and why I pose that question is I thought I know last time we talked, I knew that was where you're at with it.
Yeah.
And I can see you growing, and I love watching it and jumping back in with you, like in kind of like a lapse of time to see you again and see how much you guys have grown. For me, I always paint that picture because I really want some of the listeners and that are the people who are attracted to my content. I want them to understand that just because you're going for it, it's not like other things like instant gratification. Your side hustle and your hustle, you can't just go from 0 to 100. Like the overnight fame, those people were working their ass off for 10 to 15 years before that. Now they're there, and it looks like they're there because all of a sudden that thing clicked. But you can't be in a position to make that thing click unless you're there. So it's like for me, I was just in a position where I was potentially purchasing a business, which would have put me into that spot, right? Put me right into it. It didn't work out, right? So now I have to regroup, and I'm nothing in my vision and the things that I'm trying to accomplish have stopped, and everything that I'm doing still around the scenes is always working towards that goal. And I know it's going to happen, but I think sometimes it's really easy in the short term to just get lost on short losses, but working like that and then working towards your goal and doing things like that, that's how it actually is going to happen. No one's just given something, and if they are, then it's not going to last long enough. So I always like that to just for people.
And like George said before, you have to have people around you that are doing those things too. You can't be doing it alone and being like, oh my God, like I haven't worked on my business in a week, and oh my gosh, I'm not getting any clients, and blah, 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 and be totally by yourself. Like you have to have people to talk to and are also doing those things and thriving in their own business and purpose and whatever. Because if you don't, you're going to totally get bogged down and bummed out, and you're probably not going to want to do it anymore.
Right.
You know, it's not going to be fun.
Right now, like selling my house and going to like income property and like trying to the same thing that you guys doing, right? Everyone in the planet that you tell that to, they're like, well, you had a whole house, dude. Like, why would you do that? That sounds terrible. But then I talk to you guys, I talk to Pete, you talk to people and then you feel supported because you're like, oh, what I'm doing, it is crazy, but it's crazy in the right way. Like it's crazy because it's like a cheat code. It's a good thing.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
But I have faith in you because I know like you're a good person and you're a hard worker and you're a smart person who wants the best, and I want the best for you. And because we want the best for each other, we'll succeed eventually.
Sure.
And that's the community aspect of it.
Totally.
So, yeah. And I mean, exactly. The collective's more powerful than the individual. And so it's like, it's having those people, like Sydney was saying, to be able to be like, yo, like this is going on for me right now. And then they can, when you feel like down, and then they can pick you back up in those moments. And you're so right. Like the 2-family thing for me, it was like one of the best things ever. It was kind of like the brick and mortar for me. Buying a single family home made no sense to me. It seemed almost like an attachment that was going to keep me locked down somewhere. The best thing about the 2-family is like, it's an investment. When I get a tenant up there paying more than half my mortgage, right? And then eventually, like I could leave today and just rent the whole place out. Like right now we're living downstairs and we're going to be renting out the upstairs, but we could, rent the whole place out and I could go do what I wanted. It's like, it's not a burden. It's an asset, not a liability. Right. And so in the end, it's just another way to make passive income. And like, if there's anything that could be a positive suggestion for any of the listeners, like create as many passive income streams for your life as possible.
Absolutely.
Take the stress off from residual overhead.
Yeah.
So breaking away at least a little bit from like specifically to the business and more so like your key concepts for the day-to-day people, like some of the listeners, some of the people that you probably see maybe come hit your class where they just done nothing like that before. They're just saying like, what's yoga about, man? What's eating this way look like for me? I've been pounding down burgers for the past 5 days in a row.
What's so good about yoga? On a day-to-day
basis, like what does it look like what things get people from A to B? What bring people into your world? What are the footsteps to it and what are the benefits to those different pieces that you guys bring in a lifestyle for someone?
Well, do you care?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'll talk first about the benefits of, all three of the different like main cornerstones of the concept. The first one being yoga. Yoga is so much more than just, a lot of people nowadays, when they think about yoga, they think about going to a class and doing some fancy shapes. And yoga really is a way of, at least the shapes that you do, which are in yoga called asana, which are like the physical postures. Those primarily deal with our relationship with the past, meaning like I get to work through some of that stress, tension, and fatigue that I'm holding onto in my physical body that's no longer serving me. And so yoga actually means, it's a Sanskrit word, which is just an ancient language that means union. It means union of the body, mind, soul, spirit, and the environment. And so yoga is really being in that place in your life where you feel physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually well. And I mean, who isn't going to benefit no matter what path it is that they're headed down in their own life from, getting to that place. And then meditation, the thing about meditation is even like the guided meditation, even like the ones that you help me with, most meditation these days, especially the apps, is really mindfulness. It's the art of bringing our attention back into the present. And so like, a lot of meditations will use like a point of focus. And when your attention, gets distracted, you kind of recenter yourself on that point of focus. And it helps in the moment you get away from anticipating about the future or worrying about the past and kind of recenter yourself and feel more grounded in the moment. And then those techniques are really, really good. But what I teach and what we share at these events is a form of meditation in which, they say your bodies, my teacher, Emily Fletcher, actually says it beautifully. She says, your body is a perfect accountant. She says, every shot of tequila that you've taken, every all-nighter that you've pulled, it stores itself somewhere in your cellular memory. And so in the meditation technique that I teach, it helps you go in and get rid of that backlog of stress. And then once you get rid of that backlog of stress and you're not tied up in huge knots of stress in your life, you're able to perform at the top of your game in your life. And so then the eating healthy part is obviously like one of the main, constructs of Nourish as well. And it's like, I heard it best explained once by a guy who was giving a talk at this juice bar. And he said, if you had a Lamborghini, would you put 87 or would you put premium in it? Right. And so you put premium in it. Same with our bodies. Our body is the vehicle through which you move through life. So you want to put the best quality product in there. And so we feel like at our events, it's like you could be from any walk of life, but coming in there and creating that union and getting rid of the backlog of stress and then putting premium in your body, who's not going to leave feeling better than they did when they walked in?
Like it.
And you also, when you do that, you start to form a relationship with yourself, where you actually start to, and I've read this in one of my favorite 12 rules for life, which is in our show notes. To treat yourself like somebody that you need to take care of, as if you were, a small child that you were in charge of looking after. You should treat yourself in the same respect. There's something about the golden rule, which can kind of philosophically be worked around, where, treat somebody the way that they would like to be treated. But there are people out there, and, they can talk to this from like a psychological point of view, who thrive on actually not being treated well. So if you treat yourself like somebody in which you are supposed to be cared for, you kind of work around that kind of backflip almost. And you do start to really respect yourself in that way. And then you do start to formulate, habits and thoughts and actions that treat yourself in that way too. And then you present to the world that way, and, success can gradually come after that.
Yeah, totally.
Do you want to add?
I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think some of these things that you're talking about, like being present, right? Being present has probably never been more important than modern time right now. They didn't have the type of distractions that we have right now in their lives 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we really are going to understand the consequences and changes that those give to us for another 10 or 15 years, when we start seeing people who have been, hanging with the cell phone for 15, 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? And, there's so many positives that come out of all the technology that we have. And I'm such a techie person that I'm wrapped right in it, but there have to be ways that you can get grounded and level yourself in a way that you're able to be present and not feel like I need to check this thing one more time, and I need to go do that, and I need to do this. And you have to try to find a way to stop fragmenting and hone in on it. And it sounds like that really helps you do that.
The attention game.
Commonly in commonplace.
Yeah, it's kind of a reset. Like, we like to talk about our events as 3-hour retreats, because most of us can't afford to go to, Costa Rica for a week and do yoga meditation on the beach. I mean, that's lovely once in a while, but it's easier to come to one of our events for 3 hours, get that reset, bring your body, your mind, and your soul back to balance. So then you can go back into your life and be a little calmer to your kids. Or, if your parents are nagging at you, just settle down a little bit, kind of like, go back to balance, calm down a little bit, rather than spending the extra money at the nail salon or, getting your hair done. Just spend the extra money for your own well-being, so then you can thrive for the rest of your life.
So do you see at your events, do you see a lot of people come out to these things that they've never done any of this stuff, and they're like, hey, I want to check it out, and this is the first time ever?
For sure.
Or you see a lot of people, you see a mix, people have been doing it forever.
Definitely.
Like, hey, let's all hang out with a big group and do this. Like, what do you see in this mix of your audience?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a mix. I mean, it just like, anything that is healthy these days. People, I think, more and more becoming more and more conscious of the importance of, like, taking time to nourish themselves, taking time to, develop a set of habits that's going to enable them to be a little bit happier, a little bit nicer, a little bit kinder, feel better in their bodies, whatever it may be. And so, we definitely get people from all walks of life. People who've been practicing yoga their entire lives, will come to one of our events, and people who've never been on a yoga mat will also come. And so it's sweet, because the way I look at it is, when enough of us shift the way we move through the world, we'll create a global shift.
Yep.
So, I think, Cindy makes a good point about this is something that becomes accessible for anybody because it's only 3 hours. So I think you're more likely to get people who've never done yoga to something that's only 3 hours, because it's like you can do anything for 3 hours. And if you hate it, you don't got to come back. But we're definitely into, like, we're actually going to be hosting our first retreat this year. I know she talked about retreats. And the thing is, everybody can't necessarily afford that. So we have the 3-hour mindful experience, our little pop-ups for people to come. But then people who want to come to something that is a little more expensive and a little bit more intense, we are going to offer some retreats, because some people want to take a deeper dive. But the cool thing about the 3 hours is, because it's only, that short span of time, most people are willing to at least say, screw it, I'll give it a shot.
Right. That's cool. So you're going to end up doing like a retreat, like days, like what's that look like?
Yeah.
Like a long weekend.
Cool. Pick like a spot and get away at it. People will stay there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We're hoping, like 4 days. I have, one of the main things I do, which is probably the thing I invest, the most of my time in, is I teach an in-depth 4-session course in which I teach people how to become a self-sufficient meditator. And if anybody's interested in learning more, if you go to my website, georgespeterson.com, there's a free introduction to the course right on there. You can sign up for it. It's totally free if you want to learn more. And so one of the things I want to do on this retreat is, there'll probably be a large portion of it in which we are doing yoga. And obviously Sydney will be cooking amazing food for us the whole time. But my course, when you take it, it's 4 sessions, and each session is about 90 minutes to 2 hours. And so part of you signing up for the retreat is going to be over the course of 4 of the days of the retreat, you're going to be doing one of those sessions, and you're going to be learning the in-depth 4-session course, so you can leave there and be a self-sufficient meditator.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we were looking at some spots.
Yeah, we're in the works right now, trying to lock down a space, but
we're thinking maybe Cape Cod or somewhere up in, like,
I think coastal Maine's pretty.
Coastal Maine.
Love it up there. Absolutely love it there too.
I'm curious.
Both those spots are good. Super different demographics, probably, like for the people that live right in town. In each.
Right. Yeah.
And I was going to ask too, what's the like, what have you noticed as the differences between the two coasts in terms of practice and like the differences in students and people who come in? Like, what are kind of some of the challenges from coming from coast to coast? Obviously, two somewhat similar but way different cultures on each of the coasts and into completely different things. And I was curious about that.
Well, I think it's hard because we're from New England, but what I was made aware of when I came back to the East Coast was we're kind of hardcore, like
Dickish.
Just say what's on your mind. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of cliquey. You have your friends, from your neighborhoods, and you're still hanging out with them, and you got your kids together and all that stuff. On the West Coast where we were, it's like so sunny and everyone's smiling and everyone's so friendly all the time. And it's like kind of idyllic, to be honest with you. And you just get that.
What does that mean?
It means ideal.
Oh, okay.
Because
yeah, I don't know. I gotta ask.
Because
I didn't either. I was hoping you would.
You
don't worry about it.
Gosh.
You get him, I get him.
Yeah. But they're just like that, like those practices that we're teaching at Nourish are kind of ingrained in that culture. They've been there for so long. So people, that's just a typical thing that they do here. Yeah, it's pretty popular, but it's not as ingrained as it is out there.
Yeah, I think that it was really awesome for us to move there, especially because when I moved there, I hadn't really had that much experience teaching. And so it was great to move out there where there were so many opportunities to begin teaching. And so again, repetition is the mother of skill. It's like having that many opportunities to be able to, practice and teach yoga and meditation. I had never had that anywhere else. And so it was nice because it got my feet wet and it got the momentum going, and it started moving me in the direction of becoming a good teacher. There's a guy named Yogi Bhajan who brought this thing called Kundalini yoga to the West. And he talks about what he calls the 5 sutras of the Aquarian age. And one of them is, when the time is on you, start and the pressure will be off. And so I know you guys interview like a lot of entrepreneurs, and the thing is what I've discovered is like, you just have to start, like, even when you're not good. Like, I look back on like the meditation and yoga teacher I was when I first started, and I sucked. And I even look back on our first Nourish event, and like, it sucks compared to like what we're offering people today. Like, they're dialed in, they're honed in. Like, we know, all right, we're starting with yoga, and yoga is going to be themed around this. And then we're moving into meditation. Then we're moving into a lecture about goal setting. And then we're doing this goal setting exercise. And then Sydney's cooking a meal, and we're going to be raffling this during the meal. And we're going to be having this conversation at the meal. It's nice. And like, trust me, there's plenty of opportunity for organic and spontaneous, opportunities and conversations to arise. But it's like, we just have to get started. And even still, it's like, even when I'm not perfect, I just keep going. And I forget what you were saying earlier, but you said something about like, about when you're like, you wanted to show people that like, sometimes you have to grind, you have to work a 9 to 5 while you're going out there chasing your dreams. And I think part of that, what I wanted to say based on that earlier, was it's all about persistence. Like, that fearful voice of the ego will show up for me every day and be like, oh, you should go back, work full time, quit this. Like, that's got insurance. Like, it's the way safer route, settle for mediocrity. And it's like, the biggest thing for me that I've learned is just to have those tools that can keep changing my state, and recalibrating me back to that frequency of love and away from that fearful voice of the ego. And, it's a journey.
Yeah, I've said it a bunch on this podcast, and I always say the best way to be in business is to be in business. And it's just like anything, man. Like this podcast, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do a podcast. It's going to suck. I don't know how, and it might, but no, but I just like, let's do it. And then we did it. Thanks, man.
Dude, we don't suck. Nice.
We did it. We did it. We're doing it. And it's like, we're learning on this all the time. Same thing with like audio.
Oh, so much has changed.
Just started doing that young. I sucked ass, and I'm getting better at it. It's anything. You don't learn. Like, I went to school, and I did actually like even more schooling, and I learned it. And I always have the conversation with people about like the pros and cons on it. But the school of hard knocks, like, you just learn things that you have to do like on the spot to adapt. Like the headphones that you guys had to do at the beginning of the episode. It's like, until you put yourself into positions all the time, and you have to keep learning like this random little trick that like you would just never know unless you were in the position. You're like, oh, I remember that one time that this ridiculous thing happened, and I need to figure it out in like 45 seconds, or else a million people would be mad at me, or this would happen. Then it's like, they're just not the same lessons, and they're just not the same ways to adapt. I feel like sometimes
you didn't take headphones 101. No,
I kind of did. I have an audio degree. There is like a
so there actually is a headphones 101.
101 where you just talk about frequency rate, or
I stand corrected,
No, I don't know. There probably is. Someone's going to correct me on it later.
Yeah, that's like total life cred. And that's like because I wasn't professionally trained as a chef, but I still charge people to eat my food.
Right.
And a lot of the ego will tell you, why are you doing this? You're not trained. Like, your food's not good enough.
You won't pay money for the food. You can't charge money for it.
Exactly. But life cred allows you to do that, I think.
Absolutely.
Because you get people to say, wow, this is so delicious. Like, when are you bringing a cookbook out? Like, this is amazing.
So many people ask for her cookbook.
Yeah, you got to. That would be
at
sick.
Every event. They're like, yo, when's Sydney's cookbook? When's the Nourish cookbook?
It's in the works.
It's happening.
In the works.
Let's go.
Yeah.
It's in the works.
And, you want to. I see it.
And it's like, but she's right. It's like, it's one of my teachers says, like, you can have as many certifications as you want, but the greatest credentials you can have are life cred. And it's like, she's been cooking her entire life. She's been in the kitchen. She grew up with her father, was in the restaurant business. And like people all the time are like, oh my God, like Sydney's food's amazing. And so it's good for people who are listening to know, like, when the time is on you, like I said, that sutra of the Aquarian age, just start.
Right. I absolutely understand it.
Yeah. Start.
So like on a day-to-day,
Not tomorrow.
On a day-to-day basis, what are some of the things that you're putting into the creation of this? Like obviously after each event, you're like, oh, like let's try this next time. Let's try that. Like what are some of the things that you're working towards?
Well, after each event, we give out a survey because you definitely want to get people's opinion who, especially in a new business, I think in any business, it's helpful.
Absolutely.
So depending on what comes from that, we kind of transition like our concept a little differently, kink it, a little bit. And, but for the future, we have a nonprofit that we're starting. We're still going to do our special, like paid for, you can buy a seat at our event. Pop-ups.
Yeah.
But one of our good friends, Jillian Hanna, she's an amazing yoga teacher who sometimes assists at our events. Her brother, unfortunately, passed away from, he OD'd on drugs and
heroin.
Okay. I didn't know how to get into details. Long story short, his family graciously gave all of the money that they received from gifts to George in support of just spearheading the recovery and so
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So George can explain it because he's actually like in the nonprofit zone, and I'm like, I got no idea what you're talking about with all that stuff.
That is something we have never talked about on the podcast. I don't know squat about nonprofit at all.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't either. So in lieu of flowers, her family graciously donated the money to me to, go out there and share these tools that have transformed our life with as many people in recovery as possible. And so I had this idea. It was really like an intuitive thought, and I've actually, learned on this journey of life that like when an intuitive thought hits me today, and I credit that to my meditation practice. I'm actually going out to one of my meditation teachers' courses in New York City next week. His name's Light Watkins, and he says, meditate every morning for 20 minutes and your intuition will become louder and clearer. And I had this like intuitive download that I wanted to create a nonprofit in her brother's name with the money. And what I wanted to do was host these Nourish events that we're already hosting on top of the ones that we're going to continue to host that people will pay for. But these ones, all the money that gets donated to the foundation will be put into running more of these events, but they're going to be all for people in recovery. And, probably mostly people in recovery from substance use disorder, but really addiction is any behavior you continue to do despite the fact it brings negative consequences. And with how many people are impacted by the opioid crisis these days, we all know somebody who's affected. And so we're going to host these events, and all the money that the nonprofit raises will go to hosting them for free. So people who are in recovery who can't afford them can come to the events, and then all the money that gets donated will continue to go back into the nonprofit to keep hosting more of these events. And the goal will be that me, Jill, whose brother unfortunately passed, and Sydney will get to travel. I'll teach the yoga and meditation with Jill, and Sydney will cook food, and we'll teach people how to have these tools. As I said, these aren't just tools to get sober. These are tools to live your best life and thrive no matter what it is you want to do. And we want to give this stuff to the recovery community, because what I've discovered is like when you recover, when you have the tools to live your best life, you don't want to drink anymore. And that's where we're confused. We're so worried about making sure that people stop drinking and stop using. But if we gave them the tools to live their best life, that would be a natural byproduct of that. And so the last thing I'll say is that about the nonprofit is that we want to not only give people these tools to live their best life and thrive in their recovery, but the other thing is like, we want to make these events fun, because I think people think like, oh, you get sober, you can't have any more fun. I'm having way more fun now in my sobriety than I ever had, drinking and using.
Sure.
Granted, I was not a social drinker, or like an occasional weed smoker. I was a full blown IV drug user, but the point of the story is like, we want to give people a space where they can come have fun and they don't have to drink to do that. And so like, for instance, one of our goals this year is we're going to rent these things called sound off headphones. Have you heard of these? So there's these headphones, and they're wireless headphones, right? And they have like multiple channels. And so we're going to first of all be listening to the music for yoga. Each person's going to have like their own wireless headphone, while a DJ is DJing and they're doing yoga. And then after the event and after Sydney's amazing meal, we're going to do a silent disco. And so there's multiple channels. So you have a few different DJs, and then you can just flip back and forth between the DJs on these headphones, and everybody's in silence listening to whatever channel they want.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So those are like, probably like, I've gone to a couple conventions in like LA and New York, and there's sometimes like in the top floor, there would be like an audience. Everyone would take a pair of headphones, and then the speaker would actually speak, and that's how you get it through those headphones. I wonder if those are the same.
Probably.
It's probably just a headphone that you broadcast to. That's wireless.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. They're called Sound Off, the company.
Sweet.
We went to a big yoga festival in Vermont called Wanderlust, and like they do a silent disco and they do yoga class with these headphones, and we're like, we got to start bringing these to the recovery community, because kids will love something fun like that.
Well, especially Jill's brother was like such a lively person, and they really want to get that spirit out there. So I think that's like a perfect,
way of sharing.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Yeah, he was big into like hip hop, and so it's like he would have loved like going and listening to a silent disco with like some hip hop music on his headphones. And like, if we can kind of like, rekindle his spirit at our events, like what better way to at least, bring some good out of an awful situation.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're excited about that. Wellness can be fun, people. It's not all like,
well, definitely.
Yeah, no, I feel like people think that yoga is like yoga or meditation, like if they don't understand it at all, which I don't understand a lot of it. I'm going to flat out put it out there. I haven't gotten into it I haven't gotten into it a ton, so we'll probably talk sometime, but they think it's boring because it's quiet. But I feel like, obviously like what you get afterwards, but also where your mind goes in there is a different experience than you can really perceive unless you.
It's not even really where your mind goes. It's what your mind comes back from.
Right.
It really is just the ability to redirect your attention, like you said, back to the present, and how often you are finding yourself not in the present, and how much of your time you're kind of losing or wasting or not actively being in. Like a word that I use with people, what I used when I worked with patients was, you're not engaging with anything. Like you're a passerby. When you're like that, you're like almost in sleep mode where you're on autopilot. And when your attention is in the moment and it's focused back, like your engagement is at its fullest potential. You're not operating at 50% capacity. You're not operating subconsciously. Like you're fully engaged with it. And the dividends from being fully engaged with something, it can be minute, but anybody, you're a smart guy, like minute details in one direction or another, bad or good, lead you to something very good or very bad farther down the line. And when you have that kind of perspective and you bring that attention back, it allows you to be conscious and engaged and attentive with those kind of decisions that you make that end up inevitably bringing you into a positive or a negative place. And you really do kind of pave your own way through that. And that's, what these kind of practices, through a lot of different things, through mindfulness, through yoga, and yoga specifically helps the mind formulate the mind-body connection, where you are, it's like with a child where the whole purpose of play is to understand the boundaries of your body. And when you understand a physical boundary of your body, your mind starts to become stronger as well. And that's where you really start to get the physical benefits. I know a little bit about a little bit, mate.
Dang.
Yeah.
I help people through recovery too.
That's cool.
I worked in inpatient for a long time, and that's what I went to school for. So
Nice.
yeah,
I like that.
bring it in a little bit.
That's a
Turn it
little,
in. I don't want to steal the thunder. I want to bring it back to you guys.
There's always something to add, especially
Indeed.
with this guy.
And it's
Just
what I think what we really appreciate about having the podcast and having this platform and working through our own growth and kind of journey with this is that we do get to cultivate these conversations with communities of people, and our communities grow other communities and connect with other communities, and like it really is just a positive thing and like a slight positive direction. So
well, I like too you guys both being on here and like the opportunity, like you said, your community connecting with our community. It's like here we are. Sydney's getting her chance to be on her first podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
awesome.
This community
doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're crushing it.
Well, I was
going
to
podcast on the Waking Up from Work podcast. There we go, people.
Yeah.
That's right. This is the start. You guys can say you guys were the first person ever to have Sydney on when she makes it big.
You remember that, Sydney? Yeah, when you were like master chefing, you remember.
Or you remember me when you guys are all big and stuff. You get Oprah on.
Yeah.
Got to remember where you came from. Oh, if we get Oprah on, dude, we're there. We did it.
Yeah.
We'll call Oprah's people. Oprah will call us.
I've actually talked to Oprah on the phone, so.
Well, you tell her to call us then. her people will call our people.
Yeah, I was going to mention though about the meditation, about how you said you're right. There's just so many misconceptions that just keep so many people from developing a regular meditation practice. And one of the biggest that I've been trying to mention all the time now is that, a deep meditation, or I like to say a blissful meditation, is no better for you than a thought-filled meditation. And so that's counterintuitive to what most people think when they think about meditation. Most people in the West, and one of the reasons they probably find it so unfulfilling is because they think that in order to have a successful meditation, they need to clear their mind. Most people under that misconception that if I'm not, focusing or concentrating my way to bliss, then meditation is not working. And what I teach is that a blissful meditation is no better for you than a thought-filled meditation, because all a blissful meditation, and all that is like a meditation that feels like, your mind wasn't that busy. It was, pretty enjoyable, and it didn't feel like it lasted an eternity. All that is a sign that your body was getting deep healing rest during meditation. And then the opposite, which everybody thinks is a wrong meditation, where you're having a ton of thoughts and it feels like the meditation drags on forever, and, it wasn't that enjoyable because of those things. Those meditations are just as good. One's not better than the other. The reason being is because the thought-filled meditation is actually the sign that your body is releasing stress in the form of thoughts. And most people have no idea that that's the case. They just think that they're supposed to force or concentrate their way to bliss, where they don't understand that actually a lot of thoughts in meditation is just a sign that your body's releasing stress in the form of thoughts. And so releasing stress in the form of thoughts and your body getting deep healing rest, one's not better than the other. And so I think it's important for people to know that. But I think the biggest thing about meditation is get a teacher. That's why I teach, because one of the things about meditation is it's like a car, right? Sydney's told you, we drove to Cali. We moved out to Cali. Our car got us there and back. Vehicles are super awesome, but not if you don't know how to drive them. Same with meditation. Get a teacher and understand the correct mechanics of meditation, because once you understand the correct mechanics, you'll easily be able to transcend from that place in your mind where, there's all that turbulence to the depth where it's already calm. But if I don't have the correct mechanics to be able to get me there, then I'm not going to be able to have that experience that's intended for me, or know things like, even when I'm not like feeling blissful during my meditation, it's still good because my body's releasing stress.
Cool. All right. You want to hit our 5? Dude?
I do.
All right. So I have the same 5 questions that I ask everyone to cap out
Cap out.
at the end.
Yes. All right. It has to happen. Ask them.
All right.
This is an ongoing thing
Have
that
you
we've been
guys-
asking every single
Have you guys
guest.
ever heard the terminology or the wording or verbiage, whatever you want to call it, like to end something is like, let's cap this out? Have you ever heard that?
Is this one of the 5 questions?
No,
No, it's really not.
It's a hidden
Only
one.
5.
It's hidden.
This
All
is
right,
the-
I'll have to chop one off after.
No. We
No,
want
A
all
question
5.
for that.
Capping
I
out.
haven't, but it makes sense.
Well, it reminds me of
Thank you.
tapping out. Like if you were like, like a
Oh,
Like a
yeah.
wrestler.
martial art fighter.
Like you're giving up.
Yeah, you'd like cap out.
I'm not giving up on you guys. I
No,
just want you to know
We're going
that.
to end the podcast versus like we're going to tap out. We're going to end the
We're gonna
fight.
tap it out.
Yeah.
Cap out or
I'm not
cap
tapping out.
off. I think it's cap
I
off.
don't
I
say
think
cap
capping off.
I say cap it out.
We're gonna cap this off.
Capping it off makes more
Try
sense.
it on.
I can't.
Okay.
I really
I'm gonna let you
It's-
keep going.
That feels foul.
You live
to
your
me.
best life, dude. I'm not
I-
gonna interrupt your flow.
All right, let's cap it off.
Let's
So
do
question number 1 would be what made you guys, like for Nourish or what you're doing right now and in general, what made you pursue this in a serious way? Like what made it be that one thing, George, that you were saying, like, I try to align everything with this thing? What made that be the thing? essentially?
The needs to happen moment. This has to be a thing.
For me, I feel like it's service, you giving something to other people. For me, I've always been that kind of person that wants to give things to people. But having that ability to use a skill and just make people's lives better,
Hmm.
I feel like is irreplaceable. And it's like, why wouldn't you do it?
Fair.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, something I once heard by this guy, Neil Donald Walsh, he wrote this book called Conversations with God. I actually said this on the last podcast that I was on. He said, life has nothing to do with you. Have you ever heard that phrase? Like, nobody comes into your life without a gift for you in their hand. He said it's actually backwards. You don't come into anybody's life without a gift for them in your hand.
Mhm.
And going back to that word dharma, it means purpose in life. And so like they say that like your dharma is those things that when you do them, time stands still. A lot of people when they're in the kitchen, it's a burden. When Sydney's in the kitchen, like time stands still for her.
Yeah.
And so when I'm teaching meditation and yoga and sharing these tools that transform my own life, like time, it doesn't feel like work. Like
Well,
technically we own, I have my business where I'm doing my meditation course and also teaching yoga on top of Nourish. And we're doing Nourish and we're working our 9 to 5. But honestly, only the 9 to 5 feels like a job. The rest of them, we're doing what we love. So it doesn't feel like we work a day in our life. And so they say like, find those things that you love to do, figure out how you can use those to be of service to others. And then you're in your dharma because time will stand still when you're doing those things. And what's better than being able to do what you love and help other people while doing it?
Right. No, that's exactly. I mean, that's literally the point of this podcast right there. Is like I won't tangent out on it because I totally will, but just like
Definitely will.
if you, dude, it's just like the amount of time in your life that you are actually living. If you hate what's happening for like the biggest portion of your life, then why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Right.
worth it. And everyone, like so many people feel like that's what they have to do, but it's not what you have to do. And so doing those things where like, if you're doing it, you're going to do Nourish 1 million hours in a week. Like you're going to be all in on it. It's not like you're not working is in terms of putting in sweat, but it doesn't have to be work in that sense. If it's something that you're truly passionate about, then it's like, I can wake up on a Saturday at 5 a.m. and start mixing with my coffee. And it means nothing to me. It means nothing bad to me. I wake up and I'm like, perfect. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my day right now. And that's I think that's the point of it, is just being able to chase and have that ability is
And
unreal.
some days, you can be exhausted. Like after an event, I'm like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. But you get filled up from the other people that are experiencing it. And that's what's makes it all worth it,
Right. You'll have to go to bed.
Exactly.
You'll have to like get some rest.
But you
But
earned
like
it.
you're not leaving there with bad baggage that you have to unpack.
Right.
Exactly.
There's nothing on your back that you're leaving with and you're like, damn, I'm just like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so in this experience, and I've learned from doing this podcast at this point that everyone is actually very awesome and insanely optimistic, but going back, looking through this process that you've done so far with Nourish, what is like the biggest mistake that you feel that you made? And when I say that, I mean like what's something that if someone else is trying to do some of the things that you're doing, what would you be like, hey, I learned from this. This is an amazing thing still, but don't do this thing because that sucks.
Do you want me to go?
You can go.
I feel like just doing it, getting started is something that I would have done earlier, if that makes sense.
This is like the 40. Yeah, it's just we hear this from everybody.
You guys agree with me?
It's just well, we
Just
hear
do it.
We hear it from so many people where everybody once they jump off, they go, "Why didn't I jump off like 5 years ago?"
Yeah, you get so like stuck in your head, like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. I need a business plan. I need money. I need this and then, but it all shows up.
Mhm.
You're really not gonna fail.
Mhm.
I mean, if you fail, that's a lesson learned. It's not really failure.
Well, they say you win some, you learn some.
Yeah, it's not. It's just it's so.
Right.
I always suggest to like, especially female entrepreneurs, just get started, and then everything will fall into place.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah. I think so too. I honestly can't really think of anything that was like a big mistake. I mean, other than like, yeah, exactly. We spent so long like trying to work out the fine details where like once we just got started, things just naturally started to kind of fall into place. And so, rather than like, going through the headaches that we went through trying to figure out, who was going to say what and who was going to do this and how
What
is
color
this going
shirt
to
am
look.
I going to make?
Totally.
What's the
Yeah.
the doorway going to look like when we get into this building?
Just start. Fail
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, and we don't have much time in a day to do things, and prioritize what's important.
Mhm.
For me, like when it comes to event planning, and I have no experience in event planning, you have a limited time to have this rental facility, and you got a bunch to do. So prioritize. Like in the beginning, I was really trying to be like really big on my decorations and bring a lot of stuff with me. But you have to realize with the pop-up company, you have to bring everything with you every single time. So it's just like really try to minimize all that junk you may not even need and prioritize what's really important and what will set people's soul on fire during the event.
Right. Cool.
Lovely.
So flip side, what in the process has been, and maybe it was what you're just saying, but what's like the best idea that you guys have come up with where you're like, damn, that is instrumental to what we're doing? Best idea in this process so far?
I think doing topics for each event.
Like having a theme.
Yeah, because in the beginning we didn't. We kind of just let people organically talk, and that got kind of awkward.
Okay.
And George had to do a lot of the facilitating. This way, people know what they're getting into, and they get excited about the specific theme.
Cool. They're coming with something in their head,
Right.
somewhat
Yeah.
involved around it. So
Questions
it's
that they
gonna
may
Something to
have.
really
Yeah.
form you. Yeah.
Exactly.
stay geared towards moving forward with what's happening instead of just,
And we can
Right.
we can curate we can curate a whole sequence for each of the events in which it falls in line with teaching the participants about whatever theme it is that they're coming to the event to learn about. So it's like we're doing 2 on Cape Cod in May, Mother's Day weekend on Friday and Saturday.
Cool.
And one's going to be about meditation. So it's like a meditation made simple course. And then one's going to be about essential oils, because another thing that we do is we talk a lot about the health benefits of essential oils at our events. And we know we can create an entire outline for each of the events where people are going to be filled up throughout the entire experience, because we know exactly what we're going there to teach. And so we can go there with a plan on how we're going to, give people the best experience while learning about those things.
Cool. So this next one, I bet you guys have a bunch. What would be some books that you would recommend to the audience? It can be business wise, it can be spiritual wise, it can be mindset, like anything that you recommend. Like last one, I think we had Pete, but Corey recommended like Happy Gilmore, the movie. You know what I mean? It's like whatever it is that
it's like what inspires you.
Yeah. What would you recommend to some of these listeners that they go check out? We'll put it in our book list.
You're good with that, so you go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm kind of joking when I say this, but I'm writing a book right now called The Missing Piece, and it's going to be
that's obviously number 1.
4 steps to creating an enjoyable meditation practice. So
when's that going to be out?
Hopefully the beginning of 2020.
Awesome, dude. That's cool.
So my goal is to have a publisher by the end of this year and have the book out in 2020.
Nice.
But other than that, there's a couple that, selfishly I would suggest, just because I honestly think that's why the book's going to be called The Missing Piece, that meditation is really the missing piece to take your life to the next level. And the first one I'd recommend is Bliss More, BLISS More. It's by Light Watkins. The subtitle is How to Meditate Without Really Trying. And helps people learn how to meditate in an easy and effortless way, in a way that will transform your life. Another misconception around meditation is that the real benefits of meditation come while we're meditating. They come the other 23 hours of the day. So if you practice the technique, which is so effortlessly laid out in that book, like the other 23 hours of your life are going to get better. You'll be a little bit happier, nicer. Your desires will be fulfilled more easily. Your intuition will be stronger. So I suggest that book. Also, Stress Less, Accomplish More, which is all about meditation for extraordinary performance. So it's like you want to be an entrepreneur and learn how to stress less and accomplish more using meditation. That's the book for you.
Cool. And we'll have these listeners, we'll have these in our show notes too. Definitely. So you don't have to remember that.
That's by Emily Fletcher.
Mm-hmm.
I got one. It's not a book though.
That's okay.
Let's hear it.
That's perfectly cool.
It's actually like an awakening deck. Have you ever seen those like card decks before?
No.
Okay, well, you're gonna see one when you Google this.
Look it up.
All right, cool.
Elena Brower, she's a pretty well-known yoga instructor. She made this like beautiful journal called Practice You, and it's it just kind of cues you into certain ways of thinking when you're journaling. And then she made like a daily awakening deck. So every day you pick up this card and it kind of triggers your mind. It's like a mind reset. So it allows you to like bring focus to positive things right away rather than
wake up and start your day that way.
Exactly.
How am I resetting?
Just it's a refresher.
So it will give you like prompts, like put one hand over your heart and focus on 3 things in your life you can be truly grateful for, which is like, that's not, one of the prompts in the deck, but it's things like that. And it's like focusing on things we can be grateful for is the quickest way to shift our mind from a negative to a positive mindset. So there's all kinds of things like that in this card deck.
And you can travel with it, which is cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I really believe in starting your day with things that prompt you to do other things, either things that prompt you to do other actions or things that relieve blocks that were going to be initially in your way. Like for instance, like just recently, like Jake and I from episode 10, we've been like holding ourselves accountable to doing actually Jesse's cold water challenge.
I was going to say that was the next book I was going to suggest.
No way.
That book, because it's all about, those are the tools to become an entrepreneur. It's not just about cold showers.
I recorded his audiobook version of it, and it's going to be coming out soon.
That's awesome.
But when I was recording it, like when I work with artists, like I try to get, like, how can I get into their record or how can I get into their audiobook or anything? And I was like, I'm going to get into
I'm gonna do the showers.
cold shower book while I'm producing this by doing these cold showers that Jesse, like I just listened to him talk about for 5 hours.
Hilarious.
So that's how I started it, dude. And then like, I don't know how it happened, but Jake and I, like from episode 10, like somehow found out that like both of us were also doing it and didn't know about it. And we're like, all right, we're going to text each other. We're going to send videos. We're going to be like all in on it.
That's
But
awesome.
my point to that was that for me triggers something because I take a cold shower and then I've already hit something. Like for me, it's still terrible. I've been doing it for a month and a half and I'm still like, this is going to suck. And I still hit it. And then I already hit something that my mind said, like, this is uncomfortable. Don't do that thing. And I was like, no, shut up, David. You're going to do that thing right now. And then for the rest of the day, I can tell myself to do those things. But like recently,
Totally. You're telling your mind you're in control.
yeah, this is my choice.
Totally. Rather
Like-
than just the mind telling you what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Jake recently, he has a new job. He just moved to San Diego actually too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool that you're saying this because I'm learning more from that spot. But he was having trouble at this new place he's working, getting clients because he's like, I've been talking with people and I'm so open and everything in my area forever. And all of a sudden in this new environment, I'm being shy and I'm not talking to people the same way that I used to. And this is so dumb. I was like, dude, how do I break this? So I said, all right, Jake, like text me when you get in. I want when you're going in, dude, before you've even put your gym bag down, before you've even done anything, he's not going to take his coat off because it's California. But like before you've done anything, literally before you even get to your back room, the first person that's a human being that you come in contact with, I want you to start a conversation about anything. The sky's blue today. And then it doesn't even matter how they react. Just walk, like literally doesn't even matter because now for the rest of your day, you just had a conversation for no reason with the first person that you ever possibly did. And I was like, all right, text me when you do that and tell me what they said. And then immediately after that, he's like, dude, I talked to like another 10 people after that because the first conversation was so foolish and ridiculous.
Totally.
Like, well, who cares about anything else then? So I dude,
Can't get any worse than that one.
I believe in starting your day and like spurring it with either an action or a thought.
Totally.
To just get back anything else that was going to be in your way without, we don't even know it, dude. The things that are built in for how our day is going to be perceived, we don't even know sometimes. And that sounds like a pretty cool way to trigger it off.
I did my first cold shower last week.
Yeah.
Did you do it?
Yeah, it was brutality.
Yeah.
I remember when Jesse came to visit us in San Diego, he was rocking the cold showers. That was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I have a lot of admiration for him because of my head has been slowly getting more and more and more bald. And I realized that it's way, way harder the more bald you get. And he is bald. And I'm like really on my way there, but he's more bald than me. And that cold water hits my head and I'm like, holy shit. Like that, I feel
I'm
that
lucky
head,
I got all the hair.
Yeah, you can,
I don't even think
scoop
about
it up,
that.
dude, and protect yourself a
We're
little.
we're two bald guys in New Hampshire right now. We were just it was 5
We can
degrees
give you
this
guys
morning.
some of ours.
Please send it my way.
Yeah, please.
Send it over.
There's a couple more I just wanted to rifle off real quick that have had an impact on it. The 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. Maybe It's You, Cut the Crap, Face Your Fears by Lauren Zanders, a great book to like come up with the dream for each area of your life. You know, because if you write down what you want and then find somebody to hold you accountable, like your chances of increasing what you want are going to be increased by like probably like 75%.
Sure.
Also, Think and Grow Rich is another book that's positively impacted me. The Soul of Leadership by Dr. Deepak Chopra. Also, A Mind at Home with Itself by Byron Katie is just this incredible book. Mindset by Carol Dweck. There's a million that I could just, that have had a positive impact on us both.
Awesome. George 100% will have the most landscape on the book list thus far.
Mm-hmm.
We have it. You can check it out. You can check it out. wakingupfromwork.com/booklist. We'll have this under George's episode 16, and you can check out.
We usually only get like 2.
Yeah,
it's like I've read like 2 books my whole life. Come on, man.
Well, you know what it is? Audiobooks.
It's audible.
Yeah.
Have changed everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have read like one book my whole life, not because I didn't want to, but because I read so slow, I'd never like stay for a whole book.
Yeah.
But now I I read everything because I listen to it on my headphones.
I like it.
It's great.
So, okay. So last question, and it's more of this kind of deal is, how do people stay in touch with George and Sydney and Nourish? Like, where do people find you for links and things like that if they want to see what's going on with you guys down the line?
Our website is nourishmindfulevents.com. And
Cool.
that's kind of all the basic information that you want to know, like when we have events, our contact information. We have pictures if people are interested in what they look like. What else is on there? Just other stuff that we sell. We do private events, and then we sell some other fun things on the website.
Yes, and then too, you could go, I have my own website, georgespeterson.com, and there's actually a link on there too to Nourish. And on the website, you can also, as I said, sign up for my free introduction to meditation course. So if you just click on the meditation tab and then you schedule a free intro session, you'll see a button to do that. That'd be a great way to get introduced to the practice of meditation.
Sweet.
You check out Nourish on there. I also just recently, it's kind of like a book. It's an ebook. Yeah, a lot of it's like quotes and like facts, but I wrote a book about how to use or the role meditation plays in thriving in your life and recovery. And it's free on there if you go on my website. And so nourishmindfulevents.com, georgespeterson.com. And as soon as we get our retreat up, we'll be putting the retreat up on nourishmindfulevents.com, as well as then a lot of the information about the nonprofit. If anybody's looking at getting involved in service or want to hold an event in your area, you could reach out to us. As she said, all of our contact infos on Nourish Mindful Events. And isn't our Instagram and Facebook handle, you changed it to Nourish Mindful Events, right?
Yeah. Yep. Instagram, Nourish Mindful Events. Yeah.
Okay.
And Facebook?
Awesome.
Nourish Mindful Events.
I think so. I mean, they're linked, so
Perfect.
You'll find it through the
We'll
tree.
get them to the right place.
yeah.
We
Awesome.
appreciate your time and the work that you're doing.
No,
We
thank you
appreciate
guys for
having
being
seriously.
on the episode. This is a good episode for people.
Definitely.
We haven't had this content on yet.
Like well-being. It's kind of all business, but you got to take care. Like you said, you have to take care of the car that's getting you through it too.